What makes a good painting?
Well, it can be looked at with real interest for a while. I don't feel secure being talked about. I need to be looked at. That most people are afraid to use their imagination.
Peter, thank you for having us in your studio today.
Quite welcome, it's an honor.
Tell me about becoming an artist. How did you arrive at that decision in your life?
Well, it was difficult because painting a picture was like building a model airplane in the part of the world I was living in. It was a hobby, period. And if you wanted to have a hobby, it was healthy and good, but you were supposed to have something you didn't want to do called a job. And I decided not to have a job. Anyway, my mother gave me a box of paints when I was about 12. So I started painting, and I remember Jackson Pollock, Picasso, and Matisse being in Life magazine. My idea was that if I used my imagination, I could do like these people did and not have to go to work. I wanted to be an artist, so I told my parents. They were pretty upset, but I just went through art school, and I persisted with this notion that I could find an art gallery and send my work to it and get money back, and I'd never have to meet anybody. And I met a young woman who was equally hostile, and together we went to Europe, and believe it or not, I made it work.
So you had this vision of how it would work, and it came true.
It came true. Oddly enough, it was a crazy idea, and contrary to what you should do, I think now, you should meet people. And in the last 21 years living here in New York State, I have met people, so I just don't know what ever possessed me at this time, but it did. And I was quite happy walking around in Paris and later in Rome, not knowing any language or any people. I did meet Twombly, but it never occurred to me to get to know him.
Do you think the absence of people was beneficial to your work?
I think if I was sentenced to prison and put in solitary confinement, I could probably last longer than practically anybody before I went insane, because I'd be quite content, you know. So I feel like I'm in pretty good mental health in spite of the evidence. You know what I mean?
Tell me about your studio practice.
Well, I come in here about 12 or 12:30, and I work until 7:30. Before I start the painting, I spend the whole day on a drawing.
Are you a direct painter, or do you do multiple glazes? Or?
Oh, multiple layers, golly. The painting is from about 3 to 12 or 14 layers.
Peter, did you like being a teacher?
Oh yes, very much. I was very surprised by the experience. I enjoyed talking to adults who for some reason wanted to paint a picture. They'd say something like, oh, I just always loved Van Gogh and I just wish I could paint like that. And I would say, well, maybe you can, let's give it a try. And it had a little bit to do with the New York Academy of Art.
You've done critiques with us, you've served on juries for shows, we've exhibited your work. I want to thank you for all that involvement.
I'm very pleased. I think it's a good art school. I mean, if you know how to paint something out there that your eyes see, at least to some extent, you're better off than if you don't know anything but how to talk. You can learn how to talk about art, but when it comes to actually painting a picture about something, New York Academy of Art is a good place to go.
What advice do you have for a young artist?
Don't take advice, because the problem with advice is that it tends to steer you towards belonging to some group which already exists, and that's not the way to stand out. You got to stand out as one individual person.
When you decided to paint figuratively, was that accepted?
Yes and no. It was accepted by the general population and people, but not by the sophisticated people who knew about modern art. The people who knew about modern art, like dealers and so on, art teachers, they only thought of the abstract expressionist movement. Pop art changed that. and I was accidentally a member of that.
Talk to me about your thoughts or relationship to cartooning.
Well, I enjoyed comics when I was a kid. The problem with cartooning is it's done by professionals. The really interesting part is when you try and do it and don't do it right or don't do it correctly. This became my art style, really. That's what I do. I try to be a cartoonist, but I don't do it smoothly. I make it so it's awkward on purpose.
Is there anything that you haven't done yet that you wish you had done?
Well, probably not. I've let myself do anything that my imagination makes possible.
I feel that today you are a real inspiration to a whole group of younger artists. How does that feel to you?
Well, that feels good, I mean, if true, but I can be inspired equally by negative opinion of art students. I moved to a small town in 1964 and accidentally owned a house next to a professor at Berkeley in the art department. So he took me over to his class, to meet his class, and it was so embarrassing. They hated me. They didn't want to meet me or anything, and he was so upset that he didn't even drive me back. I had to take a bus from Berkeley to Mill Valley. But about 2 weeks later, 3 kids showed up from his class, and they came just to tell me how bad my art was. And that was a wonderful experience too. I see my art as rebellion to a great extent, and so I don't mind if someone doesn't like it. So the fact that apparently some people do like it doesn't make that much of an impression on me, quite frankly. I just let it be, you know? I mean, it's good luck. It's good luck. I'm not putting it down, but I don't want to get involved with it. I can't follow their advice, which may be opposite of what I want to do.